Peace, y'all. Just want to add to the connection from earlier, from the video, the live now video 18.5. Just correlating some insight. This is from the book, as you can see, The Dragon Legacy. And showing the example of, for one, just in essence, the veil being thin, but then just also seeing how much, what we focus on grows and just all of the connections. Because doing this video earlier, for whatever reason, I end up getting to a point, I say for whatever reason, but, like end up synchronizing back with, aligning with this information to give examples of what I was speaking on earlier. Let's start from here, because I was talking about, let's see, I remember speaking about, the whole vibe of, cause and effect. As a matter of fact, I think this is where I'm gonna start at, because I think this is what, yep. But for one, I did a post on Patreon, I did a post on Patreon showing a comic book that was showing, Odin in the Wild Hunt and the connection with the elk, and, whether it's the elk or, the ram, and again, these different symbols have multiple layers to it, you know what I'm saying? Almost like in essence, not exactly like the English language, because that, could just have all kind of symbols, for one different word. But again, like the ram horns and just the Aries symbol in general, or the name Aries, ovaries, you know what I'm saying? So like the ovaries, of the woman, and the symbol, again, being like a ovary. Now, before even getting into this book, I kept speaking on earlier the awareness of being aware of agendas, perspectives, and who's telling the story. And in this book, you have to be aware, I think this author, David Nicholas, and you also got another book. I'm just kind of go to the side to it right quick. But Lawrence Gardner book, Realm of the Ring Lords. But, this is spoken from a perspective of, being for, the, very strong, how can I say, alignment with the underworld energy and the dragon energy, as if, this is the only right way, or, or should I say, it's kind of like from the perspective of big up in the underworld in essence, you know what I'm saying? Again, no good or bad, right or wrong to the underworld, but any of us who have any awareness of it know, like it's an energy that in essence, I know for myself and my own experience, like not trying to, quote unquote, stay in that underworld energy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a part of the process going through our darkness, dealing with our shadows, but definitely not trying to, stay in the underworld. And in this book, it'll say the other world, as you'll see right here, and the connection to El Fame. And it's also going to get into, Halloween as well, because, today is Halloween. As a matter of fact, you see it speaking on Samhain, which is, the Halloween holiday, or, considered, again, a holy day in connection, again, depending on who's telling the story. It's a holy day for somebody who's tapped in or tapping into the underworld, you know what I'm saying, in connection with, this Osiris energy, or, the Baron Samedi energy, you know what I'm saying, which is also connected to you know, the Baron Samedi energy slash, Papa Legba energy, and in essence, if you want to go on a constellation level, the Orion constellation. And again, I did a video, uh, I did a video about this, about like, the different mythologies of Orion. I think the video was in connection with, Fucus, you know, but Orion in essence also represents like the Osiris or slash, you know, Baron Samedi energy, and also like the Lazarus energy, Lazarus that was raised from the dead, Osiris was raised from the dead, Baron Samedi is a graveyard, deity and Legba kind of somewhat in that energy as well, what I'm saying, in the sense of being in between. And you see how, again, different, again, these raw energies in essence become like egregors slash deities, what I'm saying, due to being given a name, by a certain culture and stuff like that. And I brought that up earlier too. And again, like the cause and effect of certain things happening and who's telling the story. If a being who was harmed by the underworld is telling the story, because even just looking at, my perspective of just like having this balance effect, like, it's like, all right, I see the positive and negative to, being too like, oh, everything's all good all the time. And I see the positive and negative to like, oh, I'm just always in the underworld all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, uh, you see, like, again, there's no judgment towards either one. It's just having awareness of what you align with, you know what I'm saying? Again, it's very important when tapping into certain literature that you're aware to, oh, because you'll come across this book and just think like, oh, this person using a lot of etymology, this book seems, oh, all of this gotta be true, but you're not paying attention to the way the perspective is being presented. Because again, it's like bringing up, again, like rituals with the menstrual cycle, what I'm saying? The menstrual cycle being like a psychedelic, what I'm saying, in a certain point. And, it's spoken from an energy of, like, oh, this is everyday stuff, that you should do, but who's telling the story? It's somebody connecting to the underworld energy. And I also did another video, I think this in connection with the video I connected with Robert Morningsky, uh, where I also brought up Jack Parsons, and in one of Kenneth Grant books, Kenneth Grant was in the OTO. We got a lot of the in-depth, subject matter when it comes to like just different, esoteric connections with a lot of this energy, but they spoke on how Jack Parsons, you know, end up channeling a certain fairy energy or like a little Lilith energy, and how that kind of caused a little trouble for him. You know what I'm saying? Same thing in essence with John D. You know what I'm saying? Tapping in with the Ophanum and Enochian, Ophanum and Enochian letters, and channeling those angles of light. But again, you see this little connection right here with, again, Odin and the Valkyries and, the underworld. And again, as I was talking about Orion, the constellation Orion and Lazarus and, you know, return from the dead. And by Orion's feet is Sirius, the dog star. And Anubis is considered the god of quote unquote death or the underworld. And, October, Scorpio energy, death, underworld energy, rebirth and transformation energy. It's all connected, and then no coincidence in the Orion constellation, we also got the star called Betelgeuse. And if any of y'all old school enough to remember the movie or the cartoon, Beetlejuice, but Beetlejuice was like, that trickster in between the realm energy, you know what I'm saying? Beetlejuice was from the underworld, you know what I'm saying? Like uh, wearing the black and white striped, colors, you know. So it was that whole connection. So let's see. Well, it's just breaking down again, like the connection with the Anunnaki, you know, the Anunnaki, the Dragon Clan, and again, the Holy Grail, the Dragon Bloodline. And again, this is speaking from a perspective of, kind of being in, strong support of this underworld or dragon energy, like not, it's not letting speaking from the perspective of, having awareness of like how to deal with it in essence, as much as it's like presenting it in like a, like a, oh, like this is a fairy tale land in essence, you know what I'm saying? But it goes a little deeper than just being a fairy tale land. And this will also connect with, as I thought of, with Santeria and, because Obatala is not necessarily an underworld figure, but, when you think about like, Legba being crippled, uh, in a sense of walking with a cane, you know what I'm saying? And that represents a connection with the ancestors. And again, like you see how like the underworld ancestors, and I forgot the Day of the Dead for, a lot of the Latino Hispanic people, you know, that whole connection. And then even, when you talk about the gangs, the Crips and the Blood, the Crips deal with the blue color, and Crips is like cripple, and Obatala deals with the blue color. And Obatala, was said to be, drinking when he was creating humans, or he was creating humans, and then he had a couple of drinks, and then as after them drinks, after he got inebriated, he started making disfigured, quote unquote humans, and that became the humans with like disfigurations, like being crippled or something like that. So you see how it all, what I'm saying, it just, shows itself. And again, it's like being aware of what we tapping into, because even for myself, it's like, all right, being aware of how I, connect with these energies and these spirits, what I'm saying, with accountability, because for me, it was like, all right, if I'm not just straight up channeling it from within, too much of the like, the statues and, the altar work was seeming a little too external, you know what I'm saying? Again, bringing up the wild hunt again. And again, with a lot of this stuff, now some of it they'll explain like, some of this is straightforward, and a lot of this is allegorical. When they're talking about like, dealing with, the menstrual blood, or, vampiristic rites, and again, even like I said, where there's a movie, comic books, all that, because Doctor Strange, brought this up, and I've seen other shows with it where they have like this person, in the Doctor Strange comic, where he was getting his magical power, like he could take other people's magical power by, drinking their blood in essence, what I'm saying, on a vampiristic, level, and that was also in the anime, the time I reincarnated as slime as well, what I'm saying? See the different little connections. We're just gonna go down, and I'm gonna connect some other little pictures too. And here you go with the Halloween connection. It's in a small children's book. Robin May called Halloween. And again, it's like, there's facts in this book, but you got to pay attention to, again, who's telling the story and how they're telling the story. And I'm being careful to not, again, like make it seem like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like this person has an agenda to try to trick you into, you know, worshiping the underworld, let's just say, because again, that's a part of the growth. The seed grows underneath the ground in that darkness. You know what I'm saying? We talk about being born. We're in our mother's womb. The triple darkness, the 3 trimesters, the 9 months. You know what I'm saying? In connection with the numbers as well too. And then it speaks to the connection with the apple and the apple trees, and playing a certain game for Halloween in connection with the apple tree. And as you see right here, again, Halloween or Samhain is called Allen Day, and the apples involved in a holiday ritual called Allen apples. To eat them brings good luck, apparently, which is a watered down version of the idea that when one ate an Allen apple, one would see the gods. Allen is an abbreviation form of Avalon, and so the lucky apples, the ones that forge the ethereal link and facilitate transcendence, are the apples of Avalon. And again, you see these different little connections. And it also gets into like, again, some of the sciences of the body, because it also connects, but I don't have it. Let me see if it shows straight up or if it shows backwards. It's showing backwards. I wonder if I could flip it. But you have a mythological story. So let's just show it right here. I was looking for it in this book, but I wasn't able to get to it. So not gonna worry about it. But basically in this little story about Wolfram von Eschenbach, Parsifal, is a medieval romance by the German poet. And basically, and again, you see this the part here, although the poem is dedicated to the spiritual and physical search for Saint Grail, or like the Holy Grail, and the central narrative is love, chivalry, courtship that reward the hero with the happy completion of his deeds. Mythology is anatomy by law. This is also a parallel story to the Kundalini energy, and it has some connections with the adrenal, basically noradrenaline, and we'll see. I may be able to get to that while showing some of this, but again, just seeing the different connections, again in connection with what I was speaking on earlier in the video. And let's see. Again, the apple is a symbol of the other world or the underworld, you know what I'm saying? Another world, the act of taking it to bed and placing it under the pillow is a substitute for the ancient practice of sleeping in the tomb chamber, or later of sleeping in a graveyard overnight in order to obtain knowledge from the ancestors. And again, even as I'm sharing this book, again, like, you gotta be a little aware, a little more, further along in your studies, to be aware, to not just go along with everything that you see in this book. It's again like it's little explanations, that tap into some, some ancient history or her story. It's interesting to note that the amount of lovers games that are attached to Samhain, a time when all hell was supposed to break loose previously, I said that Odin was often called upon out of context as the god of love. It appears that the starfire hypothesis is correct because two Halloween divinatory games in particular relate to symbols of transcendence of wisdom to the cause of love, you know what I'm saying? When we say love, you know what I'm saying? Because again, who's telling the story? One person's, love, if it's not just the aspect of, in essence, unconditional, acceptance, or, in so many words, you know, like again, just like non-judgment, you know, because some explanations of love, again, some people might feel love is possessing somebody, you know what I'm saying? So we gotta be aware again, like who telling the story. And right here you see, let's see, talk about Samhain, Halloween with the apples. And as we're speaking on the whole apples perspective, you know, uh, again, y'all done see me bring up this, and you got the whole apple, the Taurus field, and speaking of love and magnetism in connection with the Venus energy, and the Taurus energy. But again, everything has a positive and negative because Venus could also, again, it's tapping into the underworld, or, uh, the inverted pentagram, you know what I'm saying? Again, because I think of, certain brethren and sister, deal with the whole Baphomet symbols and things of this nature, to each his own, how you connect with that energy, you know, because I feel like once you do your own research or, you do things and you see whatever it is for yourself, then, you tap in however you feel you should tap in. But again, like, the 5-pointed star in the body and understanding, like the Venus star is kind of right here in this corner in the picture, but it's more of a curvy line. Again, the curvy lines is the feminine energy, the straight lines is the masculine aspect of that energy. And we talk about numerology, 1 through 9 being the only numbers because everything after 9 is a repetition of 1 through 9. 10 is 1, 11 is 2, and so on. 12 is 3, and 5 kind of sits in the middle of that. And no coincidence that also 5, when we talk about from a zodiac perspective, is the Leo constellation, and the Leo constellation or the sun, Leo ruled by the sun energy, and it's also somewhat connected to the heart. When we talk about crystals, most green and yellowish crystals or greenish yellowish crystals connect with, the inner child and the Leo energy or the lion energy, you know what I'm saying? And, uh, a lot of stuff that speaks on like everything revolving around the sun, and not only the SUN, but the SON, to that extent as well, and even with, certain quote unquote Jesus allegories, the Son of God, or the SUN, Son of God. Then you got again, like me showing the apple and the whole little labyrinth, having to go through the labyrinth of your inner Taurus field. And again, when they bring up labyrinths, it's always this Minotaur. Minotaur is like a half bull, half human, but connecting to the Taurus energy, and I kind of showed it right here, but like, the top of a Taurus could also be like bull horns, you know, and again, also shape of a woman, and then when you cut an apple in the middle, it has the 5-pointed stars. And then this also connects to, the perspective of, the dodecahedron. And the dodecahedron is basically, it has 12 faces, and you think of like, 12 faces, 12 zodiac signs. And the 12 faces are 12 pentagrams, you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like the five senses of the 12 archetypes, are the 12 disciples, and the dodecahedron from the Platonic solids perspective is connected to ether, you know. And then again, speaking of five, and then also, no coincidence using the a butterfly as a symbol, speaking of, the quote unquote, again, not necessarily death, because, we never really die, but the transitioning from, one stage to another, or one dimension of self to another, you know what I'm saying? And again, the quote unquote death and rebirth process, again, like with Halloween and the whole Samhain energy, you know what I'm saying? Going through that death and rebirth because, we're getting stung by the secretions or the secrets of our inner self, our inner shadows, going deep within ourselves and gaining insight that allows for a certain level of transformation. And right here, this is a little connection with, I wish it had some names on it, but a little diagram and connected in connection to hydrogen, and how hydrogen is spoken of to be like a building block of, a lot of things. Of course, in essence, in which, no, this ain't even the right picture anyway. As I look at it, because it's supposed to be a dodecahedron, those are hexagons, but that whole connection with, because carbon, technically the building blocks within, or should I say carbon is like what mostly everything is made out of in this realm, but hydrogen is like that building block. And again, you see, again, I'm talking about the underworld. Let's see. And again, you see little games with the apple. And again, it's symbolism, but being aware of, what you're tapping in with, because some of these symbolisms can, bring forth certain levels of manifestation, you know. But they talk about, again, the apple ducking, where one attempts to catch apples floating on water with one's teeth, links to two fairy symbols. You could kind of read that out. To gain wisdom from the fruit of Avalon, one must first be immersed in water and thereby enter elf fame in order to win the coveted prize. Talk about water, because also the underworld, in essence, is also connected to the subconscious mind. And you see this right here, speaking of, connecting with the subconscious mind. Again, second game involving eating an apple whilst balancing your legs astride on a seesaw, in the middle of which, between one's leg, there was a lighted candle. The trick was to make both ends of the seesaw balance at the same height from the ground. The meaning of this discovered first in the pentagram of the goat of Mendez, where the candle stuck between its horns represented illumination from the womb of the goddess, And secondly, this illuminating wisdom facilitated by the reinforcing symbol of the participant eating the apple and thus obtaining the enlightened fluids of the womb sustains balance within individual, represented by the balance of the seesaw. And again, I spoke on the balance of, electricity and magnetism earlier. And even as I'm sharing this, what I'm saying, having to realize, the balance in, going, always trying to go deep into, esoteric truths, it's like having a balance even with that, what I'm saying? It's like, not always having to dive so deep into the extremes of, the quote unquote subconscious or, you know, the deep depths of, esoteric uh, insight or information. But again, no coincidence that the veil thin and, again, this line up, you know, to have a little, to dip our toes in the water a little bit. Speaking of diving for apples in the water. And they speak on right here in this perfect balance, positive and negative forces cancel each other out and produce an equilibrium, which is both everything and nothing. Stillness, the nicks are zero. The seesaw, like the zero, is another principle symbol in Zen Buddhism. Enlightenment exists in balance, and the candle at the pivotal point also suggests this teaching. You know what I'm saying? So you see again, like the connection with, balancing things out. And again, I ain't got to go through each one of these little games. Again, I got this book on PDF. So, for those of y'all who interested, but again, you do have to have that awareness again. With anything you're dealing with, movies, anime, comics, books like this. Because another thing too, is like the paradox, or sometimes it could be the irony or the contradiction of like, well, a lot of people use the cliche statement, ain't nothing new under the sun, or or the only stories that could be told is the ones already told. So if that's the case, then a comic book could be just as valid as, you know, hence why Marvel, is so popular. You got Star Wars, and again, a lot of these movies, the movie Doom, just to name a few. But you got a lot of these movies that line up with a lot of mythology, which lines up with anatomy. Again, law of correspondence, as above, so below. Mythology is anatomy by law. And again, so you got some more explanations of Halloween. Let me see, I think that's about it as far as what I was gonna show. Then got like a little connection with the mounds, I spoke on the mounds in Louisiana, in particular in Baton Rouge, you know what I'm saying? And mounds also could represent like, like again, like the curves or the fertility of a woman, like a pregnant woman. And you got, Yggdrasil, that's the tree. Uh, in connection with, Norse mythology. Because this book and this Lawrence Gardner book, again, it shows a little connection. Tolkien's, Timeless Legacy connecting with, the Lord of the Rings, you know. But also, again, like you got these shows like think about the Serpent Queen and Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, you know what I'm saying? Like, also showing how this this ancient energy moved from, from ancient, connections where you're talking about Aboriginal tribes, and then connections like with the storylines with Credo Mutwa talking about the Chitari people, you know what I'm saying? Again, you just see how all the insight, start to correlate. And even bring up a little bit of Jung energy, you know what I'm saying? I spoke about that from the book of Man and His Symbols, right now I'm on the red book, which is also like basically it's like Carl Jung's, almost like Carl Jung's journal of doing like some deep diving, integration work, you know what I'm saying? And facing those quote unquote, for lack of a better word, some people say inner demons, but like facing those, parts of self that you didn't want to accept, because again, it's hard for our humanity to have the perspective of accepting, the part of us who may have been sexually abused or sexually abused somebody. You know what I'm saying? Either one, because from a human perspective, it's like, oh, you got to condemn that energy always and forever. And it's like it's an energy to be in the perspective, of course, we're not promoting to go around doing that, you know, at the same time, it's like to not judge that being for, going through that, whether they was the one who was in, you know, who inflicted that pain upon somebody or was the victim of that pain, it's no judgment, you know what I'm saying? But again, speaking to the anima and the animus is like the masculine, feminine perspectives within the male and female subconscious mind. And let me see if I can find this Kundalini story before I go. But again, just want to, just show the little connections of like how I was talking about this earlier, in connection with, let me see, talk about the Merovingians, Merovingians was said to be a line connected, quote unquote, like, because it's like the Mary Virgins, no coincidence that, they speak on it in connection with bees. And, you got the energy of what is called Partha. I got it right here. Basically, like, the animals that's able to, have babies on their own. It has some notes on there. Again, all those connections. And again, this connects the dots of, the Anunnaki in connection with, how it steeps down into, even like, again, with the Hebrew perspective. And again, like the science of words, word magic, and how Hebrew letters, are words that create, at first was the word and the word is God, but at first was the word and the word is God within this world, and again, the Gnostic scriptures speak on that. If you talk about the Gnostic scripture, the creation of the world are homeostasis of the archons, go into that as well. And everything I'm speaking on, again, look it up, do your own research. But again, again, you have these connections that again go from that Hebrew perspective, and that also goes down into, the German energy, and I thought about, even in Hollywood has the Anunnaki statues, by one of the little malls or the little theaters out there, and it's not too far from Little Armenia, right down the street from Little Armenia. And Armenia is kind of connected to, the German energy, and again, and the whole thing with Hitler and the Aryan race, Aryan or Arian, and it's also connected to, also certain Hindu uh, Hindu scriptures, you know what I'm saying, of Vedic, scriptures. Because the swastika was actually like, something coming from, you know, like dealing with Sanskrit and say the try and get the name. Because I'm not, it's not necessarily a Hindu religion per se, but and it stems down into, the again the Rosicrucians, and I spoke on that, the Rosicrucians, the rose, and the rose being like the flower of life, and in the homeostasis of the archons, Gnostic scriptures. And again, the Gnostic scriptures also seem like it's like, a connection with the Greeks mythology as well. It's kind of put into that in the Greek Bible in essence. But again, you see, matter of fact, that they just, right now, I thought they said something about Shiva. As I'm like, I was just talking about it. And right here, the breakdowns of the different, and again, how I spoke on just bringing it full circle, the energy with Odin and the Valkyries, but I was speaking on it from comic book and then other little archetypes, but I was talking about, again, agendas, perspectives, and who's telling the story, and again, quote unquote karma, or and AKA cause and effect, is the parent to all archetypes. The cause, when, if you think about the Gnostic scriptures, speaking on Yadalabrat, you know what I'm saying, being casted into Tartarus or the underworld, you know what I'm saying, casted in those depths of the waters. That was the cause. The effect was that, jealousy was, in essence created. Jealousy was felt. And again, I did videos on how, how emotions became, in essence, entities. The first time a certain emotion got expressed, that became like an entity that built itself up, over years, in essence, you know what I'm saying? But, and jealousy in the Gnostic scriptures also turns into like the death being as well, so jealousy and death, and when we talk about the Scorpio energy and possessiveness, because a possessive energy is like a jealous energy, and no coincidence, we talk about the scriptures of the Bible, which, don't, again, they remove the Gnostic scriptures and, the book of Enoch, all this for a reason, because it would have told a deeper truth and connection with, all of this, the connections with astrology, and giving people a deeper understanding instead of just trying to sell the story of, the Christ energy, which is cool, like the Christ energy, you know what I'm saying, tapping in to that unconditional love and spiritual equilibrium is on point, but that's just part of, what I'm saying, it's not the whole story. Who's telling the story? Is it the beings who trying to get humans to be a slave telling the story, or is it beings that's trying to liberate, humanity that's telling the story? Is it the beings that come from the water that's telling the story, or the beings that come from on land? And I kind of made a reference, seeing that that's going to be like they're probably going to have a lot of the I mean, again, the veil thinning, so mostly all movies just gonna kind of rawly tell a lot of the stories, but the new Black Panther movie coming out and them having Namor, and Amar being from Atlantis or from out of the water. So they're gonna have that whole little, the first time the water kingdom and the earth kingdom had to, meet up and discuss things, you know what I'm saying? You know, but again, and then bringing up Chronos. The whole Capricorn energy. And that's we talk about, let's see. Karl is Valerian, and let's see, they got images but this brethren here, he basically has like they have and that's the little symbol, House of Valerian. Symbol is like a C, basically like the Capricorn symbol. But his nickname is the Sea Snake. You know what I'm saying? And no coincidence, they got him melanated, to kind of give a little hint, hint, wink, wink. Of course, not getting lost in the sauce of, overly identifying with the bodysuit energy, but it plays a part in just, having a awareness of things. But, again, being called a sea snake, but that's all connected. Because also, realizing again, even with connection with the trees, and connecting with the ancestors, because again, that energy being connected to, a tree represents the balance between the yin and the yang, a connection to the underworld and, the underworld, and not even necessarily say the heavens, but again, like not even say the waking world, but you know what I'm saying, like the darkness and the light, the realm within the darkness and the realm within the light, you know what I'm saying, for lack of a better word, because that was coming to me. That was, and again, like in the whole connection with, again, the apple and the Taurus field, the tree being shaped like a Taurus field, in essence, how the branches root out at the bottom and the tree branches out at the top, as a Taurus field would. And again, like, the life cycle of, the seed becoming a tree, producing fruit, which produces a new seed, which falls to the ground, that could produce another tree, which produce fruit, you know what I'm saying? You see kind of like the whole cycle, but again, as we speak on that, it's an infinite cycle, but it's also a lesson loop, as the brethren Bridge of Ra, much love to Bridge of Ra, always harping, narrowing in on that, like, like, hey, be aware that, to being eternal, which means, like boundless, like, like not having no boundaries. There's a difference between eternal and, in essence, being in the infinity sign or in that infinity energy, because part of that infinity energy, or more so in connection with the symbol, is really being in the loop. So it's still not like true free, it's not the true perspective of being free and eternal, because again, just how tricky wordplay could get or spells could get, you know what I'm saying? Hence why, again, going back to the Chitauri storyline and, the humans being confused once they had implemented, language. And this also again connects to the Aborigine people were, Dan went to speak on like, the Aboriginal, women and men spoke different languages and was beefing with each other at one time. And then also, like seeing that certain languages, stem more from a feminine energy and some languages stem more from a masculine energy, you know. And again, that being the first little quote unquote, beef in essence, a little clash of energy. Because it's also the Venus energy, and that's also the Martian energy or the Mars energy. We talk about passion and also kind of like warring or clashing, because again, like you know, and not saying like, rough sex, but just sex in general, it's penetration, it's a little friction, you know what I'm saying? So even though it's passion, it's a little, bumping, you know what I'm saying? It may get a little rough. You know what I'm saying? You know, and not to say that that's, the only like that's love is having sex, just again though, seeing that connection with the Mars energy and that, that whole connection. And I'm done. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm just trying to see right quick if they have this part that quotes with the Kundalini. I might have passed it up, but I can't find it. I know it's on the left side, wherever it's at, but I'm not gonna prolong this video any longer, but just once again, like just show the little connections of what we were speaking on earlier, and using this little book as a reference. But again, this book has some great insight. Again, like with any and everything, the best thing I could share with you is, being aware of agendas. What's the agenda of the water beings? What's the agenda of the fire beings? What's the agenda of, air? What's the agenda of yin energy? What's the agenda of yang energy? You know what I'm saying? And what's their perspectives? What's their perspective on life and what's best in life and what's not best in life? You know what I'm saying? Like what a water being feel life should be, what a fire being feels life should be. Because again, as you just simply think about that, like that's gonna be a different, perspective. Again, back to different perspective. There's gonna be a different angle or angels, different angels coming from those different elements, you know. And again, like who's telling the story, the old dynasty in Kemet, Set was, ruling over things, but then in the new dynasty it was Ra. Again, it was solar worship, and back to the whole five energy with the Leo energy and Yadala brought being a serpent, lion-headed serpent, and also shaped like a sperm, and a sperm is our semen, right in the sea, and matter of fact, the what is the sea serpent? I just brought up from the House of Dragon, but also, and even a dragon itself, some dragons kind of got like a lion's mane, you know what I'm saying? And kind of, have that dragon energy, talk about Quetzalcoatl, which is also Quetzalcoatl got like somewhat of the same story as, the Yeshua story, you know what I'm saying? So you see all those little correlations. But again, And so you could simplify it either way, whether you study anatomy or you study mythology, one is telling the story of the other, you know. And when you think about the fact that that is reflective, then that also allows for you to see how it ain't no right or wrong, or, in the sense of, like the operations of the body, you know, again, it ain't necessarily that calcium is wrong for preventing magnesium from allowing things to flow, because calcium clots things up and magnesium produces things to flow. The same thing I brought up with manganese and iron, iron prevents the absorption of manganese, and iron promotes like kind of like a sturdy, like, be a little tough. What I'm saying? Manganese is more passive, more empathetic. What I'm saying? And they both prevent the absorption of the other in the body, but in a balance and harmony, it works well for the body. What I'm saying? But when you're able to have that perspective, you start to see like, all right, you know, and again, if I think of myself as, source energy, you know, uh, being the governing aspect of my whole inner universe, then, and it's tough, in the sense that sometimes, even like with doing shadow work, having to accept certain parts of yourself, where it's just like, so much human conditioning, and subconscious programming coming up that just makes it, tough to fully genuinely, because again, we could say, oh yeah, I'm accepting that part of myself, but may not still be genuinely, into the true subconscious programming of accepting that part of ourselves, you know. But again, like, really being that equilibrium factor, balancing things out within. Give up on it, but speaking of, they bring up that too, going into the underworld and the connection with, think about Garnet, pomegranate, and the Persephone story. Again, so connected, but just want to speak on that in connection with the video earlier. As I came across the Odin information and then the Samhain and the Halloween, I'm like, all right, it's a whole little download right here, just set up. There's a little alley. I just gotta, put the ball in the rim, you know. Even sports games is symbolism, you know what I'm saying? Kicking the ball through the gates, again, like, cause the gates of a house, you know what I'm saying? It's like our door is like a yoni, a vagina. Walking in is like, being a phallus. When you walk in the house, you bring in your masculine energy. And again, like the balance of the electricity and the magnetism, you know. But we don't stop it there. Yeah. But y'all know what it is. Just want to share that with y'all right quick. And again, a little mythological story in connection with, the Kundalini. I changed it out. Let's see. But yeah, it's a story right here. So again, we got multiple examples of how mythology is anatomy by law. That's not, again, like I always say, it's not to say that, you know, uh, like the Hermetic principles, aka the seven universal laws, you know, that may not exist outside of this realm, you know what I'm saying, or outside of this universe, or or the the dimension that we're in. But since I don't have nothing to, because one thing I won't do is act like I know something when like I ain't gonna speak like I know for a fact, but just, because it does come to me, can say that, like, all right, maybe the universal laws may just, apply to a certain dimension or a certain, again, certain software, certain simulation, so to speak. But yeah, that's basically it, y'all. Y'all know what it is. Again, just awareness with the connections. And dang, that's what I want to show too. But I probably passed it up uh, right quick before I go to that whole connection with Jack Parsons. Yeah, I probably. And I had that video with Jack Parsons channeling, no coincidence that Jack Parsons, and then no coincidence right now I'm at, being around the school Rice University, which has a lot to do with the space program. There we go. Bam! Right quick before I go. But again, like Jack Parsons, and another book that draws that connection and where I got that connection from was I brought up that book so many times, Hollywood Esoteric, Esoteric Hollywood, one or the other, you know. Uh, but that book, and again, you see my little side note in the Kenneth Grant book, there was a reference to Jack Parsons channeling a being possessed by uh or channeling a fairy energy, or he summoned a woman that was like basically like a fairy or some type of like uh deity, or like some type of little fairy energy, so many words, and again, where is it? The work was first published as a part of an alchemical compilation called Songs for the Witch Woman, and later appeared in OTO's publication Starfire. Candida enacted the role of Grail Maiden or Scarlet Woman. Again, the cycle ended abruptly, and in this case, Parsons lost everything, including at the end of the process his life, uh, fulfilling, one might suggest, the requirement for the initiation to offer up to Kali or Ishtar his lifeblood on the burning ground of Pyre of the Saints. Spiritual allegories sometimes become physical realities, especially if the magician has realized that the divisions between what is considered spiritual and what is conversely labeled physical are merely arbitrary and linguistic. So again, got to be aware of what we're consuming with our eyes, what we're speaking on with our words, you know what I'm saying? And that's not to fear monger, like, oh, be scared, it's just like, just be aware, you know what I'm saying? Just be aware. But yeah, and Jack Parsons' girlfriend was said to leave him for L. Ron Hubbard, and you see all those little connections, the Church of Scientology, and Jack Parsons helped create the jet propulsion energy. I didn't know how to spell. I barely even know how to say it. Propulsion. energy engine for the rockets, and in connection with NASA. And, you got the whole Operation Paperclip with the Germans and all that. And again, spoke on the Germans and the whole Hebrew. Just, all full circle. And speaking of that, and again, this book, and then another book right quick. Let me see. Without getting all into my. Which this book is kind of, for me, it was a little too, some of us could deal with reading this type of stuff, but when it's too much of this one begat that one, and that one begat that one, and that one begat that one, and you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not too good at reading this, but this book right here kind of, just kind of walks through the whole Abrahamic connection with the bloodlines from the Anunnaki dragon to the Hebrew connections, the whole Sumerian, and Assyrian connections, this book tracking Ladan Gog, the Ladan Gog, the Hebrew rose, and again back to the rose and the Rosicrucians. But yeah, most definitely. But that's basically it, guys. Covered everything that I want to just bring up, and again, in connection with the, just showing how the video I did earlier on YouTube, the Live Now 18.5 edition, connecting a lot of these little dots as well, you know what I'm saying? But, that's basically the gist of it. Again, much love, appreciation. Now is a vibrate. Y'all know what it is. Not too far in the future, not too far in the past. Right now, again, any and all donations greatly appreciated. Donation links under mostly all the videos. If you want to connect with the, the crystal artwork, right now the Etsy shop is temporarily down, but the Epic Lifestyles page on Instagram is where you can go to inquire, send me a message, and we'll get down to the ordering process and the messages. Again, got the Patreon page, also got the podcast, need to give some more attention to that with everything, and brick by brick, we're building things brick by brick, you know what I'm saying? I want to speed the building of a house, you know what I'm saying? I want to take your time, but yeah, but again, everything is greatly appreciated. Much love, and we out. Let's see.